שלא אחר וברך אמונה יסבנדו ואותם תקווה אדוני.
Today we're continuing the sugya from Gittin, the rise of Yavne. The rise of Yavne. We're continuing. This is a very, very important story in the Talmud. Definitely on the list of Talmud every Jew should know, because it tells the story of the destruction of the temple, or I should say, it tells the story of the rabbis' understanding of the circumstances that led to the destruction of the temple. So that's why we're asking ourselves last week already when we started this, what is the story they're trying to tell? What is the theology? What's the moral of the story that they're trying to get across? And the establishment of the new center of Jewish learning, which will move away from the temple and to the Galilee, and that's where we'll get to today. Just to refresh your memory on, and for those of you who weren't here last week, to go over the material, remember the story begins with a party, right? There are different elements to this story. It begins with a party, and we see in the party sort of this repetition on the part of the uninvited guest who says, please let me pay for your party and pay for half your party. How does he start? I'll pay for my own meal. I'll pay for half the party. I'll pay for the whole party. And the answer was no, get out. And Bar Kamsa, the name of the uninvited guest, was so offended by the way the host tossed him out in front of the rabbis who did nothing as he was being publicly humiliated. Right? What does he say he's going to do? He says, I'm going to go start some trouble. I'm down with the ship. I'm going to blow up the whole thing. He goes to the emperor of Rome, who it's important to note is probably the most powerful man in the world at that time, and concocts this scheme where the emperor will be very offended. What does he do? He tells the emperor, watch, these Jews don't like you. They're only pretending to be loyal to you. And you can prove that they're disloyal by sending a sacrifice, and watch how they do not accept it upon their altar. So he puts a little cut in the lip, I think, of the animal, or damages the animal, blemish somehow, and an argument takes place at the Beit HaMikdash, at the temple, about whether they should accept the sacrifice or not. What is the name of the rabbi who is saying, don't accept it, it's going to be a mistake? Very important name to know. Do you remember Zachariah ben Avkulas? Rabbi Zachariah ben Avkulas stands in the way of the sacrifice being accepted. It's found on page, the same page, right at the beginning. So then we have this story about the emperor who refuses to. We know that at that time there were a series of Roman emperors, one after the other. One says, I'm not going to do it, even though he feels that it's what God's will is. But the story is that he becomes afraid of being implicated for all eternity as the emperor that ends up destroying the temple. So he refuses. Finally, Vespasian comes, and there's a siege around Jerusalem. And then we have the story of the three wealthy men. Do you remember that from last week? The three wealthy men who try and with what they have support the people during the 3 years of the siege, which would have been possible, except there were rebels among the group, and they're the Bion rebels, and their view was that we should not make peace with the Romans, we should fight back against them. So in other words, there was an internal, intra-Jewish dispute that developed, and all of the fine flour that they had, which was going to support them, and the fuel, which was going to support them, all ends up being engulfed in flames. And now people really are starving. And the last story we read was the story of Martha, the daughter of Betos, and the tender, delicate woman who steps in dung. A very, very interesting and confusing story about how she tells her servant, get some fine flour. And the servant says, there's none left. Get some less fine flour. There's none left, but I can get you this other flour. Do you remember the story? Let's just read it one more time. See, the pages are not numbered, but it's the page that begins on the top, by the time he went and it was sold out. So she keeps sending her servant back. There's no fine flour, there's white flour. Sold out. No white flour, there's dark flour. Sold out. There's no dark flour, there's barley flour. Sold out. Then she dies. Nothing to eat, steps in dung and dies. Right? It's a very complicated story that we tried to tease out last week. Why does she die? Why is stepping in dung? What's that metaphor? How a great, maybe a very fancy woman was brought to such a state of disgrace that she dies. I read an interesting interpretation on this story that I'd like to share with you about Martha bar Betos. Why is the story told, get me fine flour, get me less fine flour, get me barley flour, and it's all no, no, no? Part of the hint within this story as to what went wrong in Jerusalem is the failure of the people to understand the gravity of the situation quickly enough. To acclimatize, I don't know if that's the right word, to adjust to the new reality quickly enough. We learn this first from the way Zachariah ben Avkulas, remember with the, should we accept the sacrifice, should we not accept the sacrifice, his failure to understand the gravity of the situation and adjust. We understand that he's a guy who is very careful about the minutiae of Jewish law and the implications of perhaps accepting something on a one-time basis that normally they would not accept. We all know people like that. But are you really going to be that meticulous when we're dealing with the emperor of Rome who could destroy the whole temple? Adjust to the new reality of the situation. Adjust to the new gravity of the situation with which you're being confronted. So this interpretation that I read submits that this is part of the Martha bar Betos story, the way we ought to read her reluctance to accept the less fine flour quickly enough. Do you see that in the way the story is being told? Get me some brown flour. By the time the servant comes back to tell her that there's no more brown flour left, right? She now won't be able to get even the barley flour. And she's trying to adjust to the fact that they're in a time of famine or of lack of food, but she's not doing it quickly enough. And I think that's, I don't know if it's right or wrong, this is all about interpretation, but I think it's a very fascinating way of understanding the story the rabbis are trying to tell us. There's a lot here behind the surface. Last week we talked about internal Jewish conflict versus external Jewish conflict. The rabbis could have easily said the temple got destroyed because of the Roman emperor. That's it, it's his fault. But they don't do that. They want us to understand the story of the destruction of the temple as being a result of internal Jewish disputes. We were fighting amongst each other in small settings, in large settings, between people, between political groups. We didn't see the threat that was looming. We didn't adjust to the reality of the threat quickly enough. And, you know, stepping in dung and dying, you could read that literally, but I choose to read it as a metaphor. What is, you know, we're in a shul, here I am talking about stepping in dung, but it's in the Talmud, so it's okay. I mean, don't we really have that expression in English too? You step in your own feces. Like, I think that might be the real lesson of this story. It's not that she stepped in dung and that offended her so much that she died, that indignified her so much that she died. I like the image of she stepped in Jewish dung. This whole story is about our own dung. And she stepped in it, and that leads to not just her death, but to everyone's death. Yes?
Do you think there's a reason why these stories follow in a sequence? Like you go from the story of the party, and then you go to the emperor, and then you go to the dung. I mean, it really is a story of more and more degradation.
Yeah.
Of the people as a whole. I mean, Marta symbolizes, is one person, but she symbolizes the degradation that's happened to the Jewish people at this particular time.
We don't, I mean, it's a very interesting question. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know why these stories are told, or whether the sequence matters or it doesn't. Are they just random stories, or are they in sequence? I'm just teasing out what could be with you. And we definitely see common themes here, very strong common themes that weave themselves within and between each story. Right? So I think there's definitely something there. And who knows if it's all of the above, right? Our internal Jewish disputes, the harm of humiliating a person. That, remember, Marta ben Betos is humiliated, stepping in that dung. But how does the story begin? Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, the party, is also a story of a person who's humiliated. So you're humiliating somebody physically by, putting them in stepping in dung, and humiliating somebody in public by publicly shaming them. So if you read them all together, to me, you're seeing all these themes: people humiliating each other, fighting between parties, inability to adjust and recognize the seriousness of what's going on quickly enough, right? And also the other theme of things getting progressively more intense. I'll pay for my meal, I'll pay for half the party, I'll pay for more. What's being told then? And we see again that fine flour, brown flour, barley flour. It's showing escalation. That's the word. Escalation, and once things get to a certain level, you're helpless.
Can I just ask you something about the way the story is put together? On the page before,
Yeah.
it talks about Rabbi Yonatan's Yehoman, and he said the scrupulousness of Rabbi Zakai Ben, scrupulous caused our house to be destroyed, burnt our temple and caused.
Yep.
And it says here in the notes, and you mentioned it too, that this comment was made hundreds of years later.
Yes.
So how does it get filtered into the story? Like, how do they, grammatically, how do you know that? When you're if it didn't have this note, we wouldn't know that.
Yeah, well, you would know when Rabbi Yochanan lived. So Rabbi Yochanan, years later, I'd have to have a family. No, he did not. Remember, the Talmud was not. The Talmud is the way the Talmud was written. It's an editing of sayings and personalities that are related over a series of centuries. Right? So in the Talmud, we find statements that go back even before the temple was destroyed, all the way to the 3rd century. Right? So over hundreds of years, we find different sayings with comments. The Talmud is actually, the latest research shows it goes even later, that there were editors in the 5th and 6th centuries who even inserted comments into the Talmud. Some of the comments, this is for I should invite in a critical Talmudist, but it's sort of scientific and nerdy and boring to bring in those people. But this is what we learned in the seminary, right? I would bring in a critical Talmudist who would explain to you that statements like this, when the Talmud tells a story, and then there's a statement that says, and this is the moral of the story, usually that second statement comes much later. The original text, which is the story of the party, Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, is the earlier one. Because the Talmud editors originally did not want conclusions to their debates. The stories were always recorded as, this is what this rabbi said, this is what this rabbi said, let's move on. Statements that say, and later everyone agreed that this is the right answer, or everyone agreed that this is what happened, come later. And it's very clear to me, actually, that this is being inserted. Rabbi Yochanan's statement is being inserted, but it is not the end of the discussion. It almost doesn't fit. We're telling us stories that all lead to the destruction of the temple, that all lead to destruction, but in the middle of the story comes Rabbi Yochanan's voice and says, I'm blaming the whole thing on Zakai ben Avkulas. Well, why blame him? Why not blame Bar Kamsa? He's the one who goes and informs the emperor. Why not blame the host of the party? He's the one who offended. So these statements, sadly, take away from the beautiful complexity of the narrative. Right? The narrative of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa it ought to be appreciated because it is not clear. Because that's what life is. It's series of events. It's multiple people who are responsible. It's events that are set in motion, not knowing where they will ultimately lead. Rabbi Yochanan's simplistic statement of it's all Zakai ben Avkulis' fault, right? Rabbi Yochanan lived later, but probably this statement gets inserted into the Talmud later,
Okay.
right? Because it's no fun. It ruins it.
Yeah, it's jolting.
Right. Blame the whole thing on him? Why? So I prefer to read it as that was Rabbi Yochanan's point of view. That's it. But I don't think he's right.
Thank
He was one guy. He had his opinion. I don't buy it. There are many different people here who are at fault, which I think is another theme and complexity in the story. Right? That this is not one person. It's a series of events that keep escalating and escalating and escalating. A chain reaction. So we're now on the paragraph that starts Abba Sikra, the head of the Bion. So at this point in the story, there's a siege around Jerusalem, and we've just ended with Martha Barbatos and the story with her throwing her money on the ground because she says, what good is all this money for me now? Any by the way, thoughts on what might be behind that statement? Martha was dying. She brought all her gold and silver, threw it in the street. She said, what do I need this for? And this is as is written in the Bible, they shall cast their silver in the streets. What new information are we getting from that story?
She has no children to give it to.
Maybe she has no children, possibly, yes?
What good is gold and silver because it doesn't keep you alive?
Right.
You need it.
And do you see the connection to the beginning? Remember, this story has strange themes that follow through. Where is money in the opening story of the party? When do we see money come to the surface?
When Bar Kamsa wants to give the person that's throwing the party money,
Yes.
so he can.
And what is the result of that money? What is the role of money in that story?
It doesn't do you any good.
It doesn't do any well, it is, he thinks that money can be used. Bar Kamsa thinks his money can be used to
buy
make everything good. Come on, I'll pay for my meal, I'll pay for half the party, I'll pay for the whole party. Right? And here in the Martha Barbatos story, she thinks her money will save her. Can't I find any flour? But there's nothing there. What do you think is what are we being taught? These are the two ways that money comes into the story. Oh, actually, there's a third way too, which is with the story of the three rich men whose wealth is able to support people until it all gets burned. Another story of how useless is all your wealth. Right? I think clearly there's a criticism here of a culture at the time which thought that money would save you from all of your problems. And we're being presented with three different accounts, one of which is very blatant and dramatic. The money being tossed on the ground saying, this is useless, right? We think that our wealth will save us from our problems. Episodes of people who think their wealth will save them from their problems, and it never does. Relying on your wealth to save you will not make any difference. And that's the quote, right? They'll cast their silver into the streets. The quote from the Bible. Your wealth will mean nothing to you. This we know from other sources was a major, major part of the corruption of Second Temple Judaism. The priestly class and their wealth, the corruption of it. And there is a critique here of how their wealth did nothing in the end to save anything.
I wanted to just make a tangential
Yeah.
comment. Please don't stone me.
No stoning.
Jews have always been involved in finance, and predominantly the Nobel Prizes in finance are Jewish. I mean, that trope of Jews and money, there is a certain element of truth in it.
Yeah.
The laws of supply and demand are really pretty clear here. And I think historically, there's always been a tension between the scholars and the businessmen who finance their studies. So this is written by the scholars.
Yes.
Written by the businessmen. But that tension we see now, and has been there for thousands of years.
Yeah. You think between the scholars and the rich people?
The scholars and the people who finance they're
Interesting.
being able to sit at in their steebles.
Interesting. So you think that this statement, this critiques of the wealth of certain people in Jerusalem are coming from a place of disrespect?
Yes,
Okay.
but I think it's a natural tension.
Okay.
That is just
Very possibly.
part of our culture.
Yeah, very possibly, right? The academics criticizing the entrepreneurs,
Right.
the business people. Very, very possibly. Any other comments on this, the role of money in the story? I mean, no matter how you rationalize the poking at people's wealth as being useless for them in the story, it's definitely there. Definitely a theme.
I think it could have been useful if, like, when you have those three men,
Yeah.
that wanted to help out. I mean, you need money. Without
Yeah.
money, you're not in a good situation.
But that
How do you?
But your internal issues will always overwhelm the financial or the wealth that you think you have. Right? Nothing will save you. Your wealth will not save you, not your individual wealth. If somebody wants to humiliate you publicly,
Yeah.
they will do so. You bribe them, doesn't make a difference. If somebody has grain in their storehouse or whatever they have and wants to use it to make a point, they will do so if the hatred is there. So these Biryoni rebels, they surface again here. Let's read. Abasikra, the head, do you see where we are? The head of the Biryoni in Jerusalem was the son of the sister of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai.
That's a different Yochanan though, right?
Different Yochanan. This is Yochanan ben Zakai. So Yochanan ben Zakai is, what's the relationship? Son of the sister, it's the nephew. Very good. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai sent a message to him. Come to meet me secretly. Okay. Abasikra came. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai said to him, how long are you going to do this and kill all the people with famine? Why is he asking him that question? Why is he blaming Abasikra for killing all the people with famine? He's not the one destroying the food. Remember, he is the one who's saying, don't make peace. There are those in the community who want to make peace with the Romans, come to some negotiated settlement, end this. But the rebels are the ones who say, no, don't give in. Fight. And so Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai is blaming him, his nephew, saying, stop this. You're killing everybody. Nobody's going to win in the end.
They burned everything.
Abba Sikra said to him, what can I do? If I say anything to the Biryoni, they will kill me. It's interesting. Listen to the internal strife within the Biryoni group. And I think this is, it's part of that theme of once things escalate to a certain point, it's too late. Remember Marta Barbatos, she's trying to get any flour, but by the time she figures out what flour she can get, there's none left of even the worst flour. And it's the same thing here. The head of the Biryoni rebels says, we've gone so far that now even I cannot, I'm the head of the rebels, I can't tell people we're changing our tactics. I've invested so much in this campaign of rebellion. It's too late. Things have escalated too much. We've gone too far. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai said, devise some plan for me to go out of the city. Perhaps it will save a little. Okay, interesting. Devise a plan for me to go out of the city. It will save a little. Everyone understand what he's saying? Just get me out of here. Everybody's dying, but just get me out of here. Abba Sikra said to him, pretend to be ill, and let everyone come to inquire about you. Bring something rotten and hide it by your side, so that they will say you are dead. And then let your students lift you up, and let no others lift you up, so that they will not feel that you are light, because they know that a living person is lighter than a corpse. So the plan is this. Pretend to be sick. It's not true, but the major idea behind this is you're going to pretend to be dead. Do you see that? Pretend to die. First, you're going to pretend to be sick. People are going to come visit you. When you're sick, the natural result is eventually you're going to die. So, do his students know that he's dead or not? That's the big point. Do his students know? Read carefully. Your students will lift you up. Nobody else will. So that they will not feel that you are light. Because they know that a living person is lighter than a corpse. They will know that he is alive. It doesn't make sense in reality, but for some reason they feel, perhaps it's because of their clothes, right? The clothes that you wear would be heavier. When you're buried, there's no clothes, and so you'll be lighter. But only his students, in other words, the trusted circle around you, will know that you're living in that casket. Don't let anybody else carry you. Because if they feel the weight of the casket, they might be suspicious that you're alive. Okay, so the plan is forged. They will put him in a casket, pretend that he's dead, carry him out of the city, since the cemetery is outside the walls of the city, and that's how he will get out. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai did so. Rabbi Eliezer entered on one side of Rabbi Yochanan's corpse and Rabbi Yehoshua on the other. When they reached the door, the Biryoni wanted to stab the corpse. Look at that. They were suspicious, the Biryoni, that someone was trying to escape. Why would the Biryoni care? Again, this is all internal, right? The Biryoni are Jews. Listen to how, look at the situation, how much internal conflict there was. This is a Jew being brought out of the city so that his life might be saved. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai. Let him go. What's the problem? But this all has to be done very secretly. Don't tell anybody that he's alive. The Biryoni can't find out. And even when he's on his way out, the Biryoni say, we just want to stab the corpse to make sure that he's dead. What are they afraid of? What are the Biryoni afraid of? Remember, what is their goal? Don't make peace with the Romans. Why do they not want people to leave? Think Hamas. It's very similar. Why does Hamas not at the beginning? Why did they not want people to leave? When the IDF dropped flyers and said get out, Hamas was stopping people from leaving. Why would they not want people to leave, save their lives?
Because it would expose Hamas.
It would expose them, but also, I hate to bring politics into this, but I think we're comfortable enough as a crowd, right? Human casualties are what Hamas wants. It's exactly the game they're playing. And I think it's the same here with the Biryoni. Right? We are standing up to the Romans. We are prepared to die. Remember the story of Masada? Anybody know the story of Masada?
Yes.
What happened in Masada? What is the story that's told? They're standing up on top of the fortress, and they all commit suicide there rather than it's the same time in Jewish history. They commit suicide there, which is better than being captured, better than making peace. So we know that these Biryoni rebels are of the same mindset. Better to die fighting the Romans than to acquiesce or make peace or even escape. That's how zealous they were. That's how extreme they were. They knew that people were trying to run away from Jerusalem. They even suspected that people might be escaping and pretending that they're dead. So they wanted to stab. This is the body in order to make sure that Rabbi Yochanan was really dead. He said to them, shall the Romans say they stabbed their master? They wanted to give the corpse a push. He said to see if the corpse was alive. He said to them, shall the Romans say they push their master? They opened a gate for him. He went out. So it's either Rabbi Yehoshua or Rabbi Eliezer who, quick thinking, gets the Biryoni off their case. Right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai was a very important rabbi, and they believed, that if they could remind them that, the Romans would be upset if you stabbed your great rabbi, it wouldn't show that you Jews are very loyal people, or that you're a harmonious people. You're stabbing your leaders. You're just going to upset the Romans even more. So, quick thinking, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai is able to get out of the city. But remember, he's almost blocked. Escaping with his life, he's almost blocked. Not by Romans. It's not by the Romans who are getting in the way. It's the Jews. So there's that theme again of we're doing this to ourselves, not the Romans. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai reached the Romans, he said, "Peace to you, king, peace to you, king." So he's now out of the casket, or he's made it outside of Jerusalem, and he goes to the emperor. Vespasian said, "You are liable to death on 2 counts. 1, because I'm not a king and you call me king. And further, if I am king, why did you not come to me before now?" Vespasian, this is where the story, becomes very creative. We don't know if this actually happened, but there is this famous meeting between Vespasian, who's not a king, he's just a general at this time, and he's overseeing the destruction of Jerusalem, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai, who says, "Hello, king," and Vespasian says, "Number one, I'm not a king, and if I am a king, you should have come to me earlier." Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai said to Vespasian, "As far as what you say that you're not a king, in truth you are a king. For if you were not a king, Jerusalem would not be given into your hands. As it is written, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one, and mighty one refers to none other than a king, as it is written, and their mighty one shall be of themselves. And Lebanon refers to the temple, as it says, this godly mountain and Lebanon. As far as what you say, if I am king, why did you not come to me before now? I answer that the Biryoni among us did not let me." What's he doing, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai, to Vespasian? He's saying to him, "You are a king." He's trying to kiss up to him a little bit. The Bible said you're going to conquer Jerusalem. And the Bible says the only person who can conquer Jerusalem, he uses the Bible to say, the only person who conquered Jerusalem is a mighty one. And mighty one means king. So since you're going to conquer Jerusalem, you are obviously a king. Now what we understand here is that the uncle and the nephew, mind you, that's not good, because the nephew also, it seemed, was, you have 2 camps. One that says make peace with the Romans, one that says fight back against them. I don't want to use his nephew, Zakai, to illustrate the camp that says fight back, because remember, the nephew says, well, it's just too late. I would change everybody's mind that it's time to make peace, but this has escalated way too much. So let's not use the nephew. But we have the Biryoni rebels who say, fight back to the death, don't give in. And those who say, negotiate, come to a settlement. Rabbi Yochanan here is clearly depicted as being someone who wants to negotiate. He's already saying to the emperor, you're going to take Jerusalem. I've accepted that. I've acquiesced to that. You will take Jerusalem and you are a king. Vespasian said to him, if there is a container of honey and a serpent surrounds it, would they not break the container because of the serpent? What's he saying? Anyone understand this? This is his answer to the question, why didn't you come see me earlier? If I'm the king and you're the leader of these people, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai was an important leader, I should mention, of the people. Why didn't you come see me earlier so we could have a meeting face to face, the king and the king? What is his answer? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai is, they wouldn't let me. The Biryoni rebels wouldn't let me. What does he respond, Vespasian? You should have broken the walls to come and see me. Do you see what he says? If there's a container of honey, meaning Vespasian is the container of honey, and there's a serpent that surrounds it, would they not break the container because of the serpent? Right? So you should have been stronger than the Biryoni, fought back harder against the Biryoni to come and see me. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai was silent, didn't have anything to respond. Yikes. Rav Yosef, and some say Rabbi Akiva, applied the following verse to him. God turns wise men backward and makes their knowledge foolish. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai should have said to Vespasian, we take a pair of tongs and grip the snake and kill it and leave the container unbroken. So this is a little addition to the story, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai was silent when Vespasian said, you should have fought harder to come and see me and negotiate a settlement. But you didn't, and Rabbi Yochanan was silent. He should have responded by coming up with some clever thing like, well, kill the snake. So I was trying to kill the Biryoni. I was trying to deal with them, and then after I was going to come and see you. He should have responded with something a little bit smoother than just being stunned at what Vespasian had said. At this point, a messenger came to him from Rome. The messenger said to Vespasian, get up, for the emperor is dead, and the notables of Rome say you should be appointed head of the state. Vespasian had just finished putting on one boot. He wanted to put on the other one, but it would not go on. He wanted to take off the other boot, but it would not come off. Vespasian said, what is this? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, do not worry. It is because good news came to you. As it says, good news makes the bone fat. Rather, what is the remedy? Let someone who you dislike come and pass before you, as it is written, a broken spirit dries up the bones. So this is all happening in real time, right? He's standing there, Yochanan ben Zakai, and he knows that Vespasian is not happy with him. Because here's the leader of Jerusalem who comes out and now decides he's going to make peace, whereas he should have done it a while ago. Vespasian doesn't kill him, but he's upset at him. But the same day something happens, he gets a message from Rome, you will be the emperor. He's taking on his boots, putting on his boot, and then he chimes in, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai, it's because you got good news. Good news makes your bones fat. Let your enemy come. We have a saying in the Torah that when your enemy comes, your bones will dry up. Vespasian did so, and the boot went on. Vespasian said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai, since you are so wise, why did you not come to me until now? Again, he's upset with the delay. So the story, the theme of waiting too long, not adjusting to the circumstances in front of you, not understanding the seriousness of the moment you are in, it now returns. He's repeated now twice, the emperor, in a different way, but it's the second time he's saying, why are you so late to come to me? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai said to Vespasian, did I not tell you? Right? I already told you, it was the Biryoni, their fault. Vespasian said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai, I also told you, you should have done more to quiet the Biryoni or to defeat the Biryoni. Vespasian again said to Rabbi Yochanan, I am now going and will send another man to take my place. But ask something of me to give to you. I've got to go now to Rome. I'm the emperor. There's going to be a new general that comes in and handles Jerusalem. But before I leave, I'm going to give you something. Why am I giving you something? Because number one, you helped me with my boot. But it's really, the real answer is because you said I was going to be king. And the very day you said that, I got news that I was going to be Caesar. I was going to be king. So you are a special person, obviously. Even though you came and waited too long, I'm going to give you something. And here is the famous line. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai said to Vespasian, "Give me Yavne and its wise men, and the family chain of Rabban Gamliel and physicians to heal Rabbi Tzadok." This is what I want. Yavne, which is a city in the Galilee. I want that city. I want to be there. You're going to defeat Jerusalem, and it seems like even he could have said save Jerusalem, but he doesn't. So it even seems like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai has had it with Jerusalem. Too much fighting. I want Yavne. And its wise men, that's a way, I think, of the Talmud saying, I want to bring my scholars there. You know, and a doctor, and I want to establish a new Jewish academy in Yavne, and we want to be left alone. Rav Yosef, and some say Rabbi Akiva, applied the following verse to him. God turns wise men backwards and makes their knowledge foolish. Again, that same verse. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai should have said to Vespasian, let the Jews off this time. He said, give me Yavne. What is the criticism? He should have said, save all of us, leave us alone. But instead, he only looked after himself and his needs. Rabbi Yochanan, however, thought that perhaps Vespasian would not do such a big thing, and even a little would not be saved. Right? So he was very, very afraid. The excuse that is given is Vespasian. If he would have said, save, let the Jews off, Vespasian would have said, no way, I'm not doing that. So instead, his request was for something small. The story ends here. I think it ends in a very poignant point. You have this fight in the Talmud between those who say, an argument in the Talmud between those who say he didn't ask for enough, and some who say he asked for too much. You understand that? Why did he ask for? He's responsible for the destruction of Jerusalem. Vespasian said, give me one wish, and I'll give it to you. And then there becomes this argument over, did he ask for too little? Do you see that in the story? Give me Yavne. Well, why did you say Yavne? You should have said, give me everything. And what is the conclusion here? The conclusion is, he knew something, that if you ask for too much, you won't get it. Ask, negotiate, be flexible. Ask for something small. I really like the way that story ends because it sort of brings home, in a subtle way, part of what the problem was from the beginning of these stories. Give me, I'll pay for my meal, I'll pay for half the party, I'll pay for most of the party. No, no, no. It was always no flexibility. And by the time people were willing to be flexible, it was already too late. But Yochanan ben Zakai, right from the beginning, comes up with a middle of the road kind of request. Do you see that? He doesn't ask for everything. He's still being criticized for asking for too little, but he does it anyway. Just give me Yavne and its sages. And he gets it. And this story is very, very important because it tells the story of the resurrection of Judaism after the destruction of the Second Temple. I guess the setting behind the story is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai saved Judaism. Because if he would not have asked for Yavne, if he would not have been smuggled out of Jerusalem, what would have happened? Jerusalem would have been destroyed. So this is a story that tells the importance of even making peace with your enemies, negotiating peace with your enemies, finding a middle ground, and being daring and courageous at a moment of great consequence. Want to watch the movie?
Yeah.
Let's do that before the class ends, and we'll have some comments about the movie, okay?
Studio Podcast.
6 days in San Francisco, 6 stories, 12 artists.
Can everyone hear?
Studio Podcast.
Wait, you can't see. Hold on. What's going on? Why are you're able to hear?
I think it's because it's been combined.
Hold on. Okay, I think I have to do this a different way. Let me do this one more time. Let me call Danny. I'm able to see it on the screen, I'm just not able to see it. Hey Danny, are you in the building? Okay, I'm having some issues with the computer, it's not working. Okay, thanks. Yeah, let's see if he'll fix it. The best we could do is show it on this little screen. It isn't going to be great.
We have to compromise, Rabbi. Yeah, we have to be flexible.
What's wrong? Could you start it? Yeah, so it's not working. See if I open up. I'm opening up Chrome. It's not. See, it's not opening. Excuse me.
it's just this. I think it's like in here. I think it's this.
It might be because I did, yeah, there's a kitchen screen there. So there must be something to do with the setting. Because I tested it this morning.
I'm able to hear the music. I'm just not able to see the thing.
Did you unplug it and plug it back in?
Yeah. I think it's something on the
Yeah, I think so too. It's something to do with the.
Because it's showing this,
the way
but it's not reflecting.
Yeah, it's not projecting the right screen. I don't know how to do that.
Has it ever done this before?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I tested this one with YouTube.
And you had and it worked?
Yeah, and I had the screen, everything that was on there. Every time it's on there.
Oh, now it's not working at all. I don't really see it.
I don't know what to tell you.
This is the best we can do for
I'm
him.
sorry, talking tales. Who would have thought the destruction of Jerusalem would come in this way? Dude, my party stinks.
Okay. It's on this little screen. Try it here.
Today on Talking Tales, who would have thought the destruction of Jerusalem would come in this way? Dude, my party stinks. What happened to Thompson? That guy's awesome.
What happened to Thompson?
The invite. Hey guys, thanks for the invite. But the bar, Thompson. You have to leave, man. We wanted Thompson. Nobody really likes you. In fact, you're my worst enemy. Oh yeah, I'll pay the cover. No way. I'll pay for all of the party. Seriously, bro, just leave. The rabbis didn't say I had to leave. Can you believe the rabbis let this happen? I'll show them.
That's at Caesar's temple. Two rabbis from Caesar for sacrifice.
No. We can't sacrifice this calf. Bar Kamsa totally blemished it. Then Caesar will be insulted if we don't sacrifice his offering. Sacrifice it is. Sacrifice. Sacrifice. Whoa. Hey, sacrifice. No, not cool, guys. It's blemished. What will the neighbors think? We don't want to start a trend. Or we could just kill Bar Kamsa. Yeah, if we don't kill him, he's going to run back to the Romans and cause a war. Rabbis, chill out. Is he who blemishes to be put to death? I don't think so. Let's just leave Bar Kamsa alone. What's the worst that could happen? Next time on Talk Tales, because the rabbis don't kill Bar Kamsa, he informs against the Jews, and Caesar sends an army to attack Jerusalem. The rebels want to fight the Romans, but the rabbis just want to negotiate peace. The rebels try to compel the rabbis to fight by burning their food and fuel. So a cunning rabbi named Yochanan ben Zakai convinces his nephew, the rebel leader, to let him escape the city in a coffin pretending to be dead. The temple is destroyed, and everyone is really sad, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai convinces the Roman general to save Rabbi Gamliel and gets permission to build an awesome school called Yavna.
Okay, so you weren't able to see much. Which story was emphasized? Of all the stories that we read, which was the one that was emphasized in the video? It was the party, right? How was the party different than you may have expected it to be depicted in the movie? There were a couple of things depicted in the movie, I know it's hard, couldn't see, that were different from what we read. In the movie, it wasn't just the host of the party. It was everybody. When the uninvited guest, when Bar Kamsa shows up, everybody says, we don't like you, leave. Right? And it was funny, they pointed at the rabbis who were sitting in the corner playing cards, doing nothing. Who is the one who is, in our story, accused with humiliating Bar Kamsa? It's this anonymous host who's never given a name. And it's so strange because that host is the one who's at the root of this whole story. I mean, if I was going to ask you, who, in your opinion, is the Talmud blaming for the destruction of Jerusalem? It's true that you can point to many different series of events that happen later in the story. But where do things originate? Things originate, in my opinion, with the host. And so you ask yourself, why is this host unnamed? Why is he mysterious? Why is there nobody later on who accuses the host of doing something that he shouldn't have done, of creating this whole problem in the first place? And I think that the animation is a response to that question. It wasn't one person. Do not misunderstand the story of the invitation to the party as being a dispute between two people that later came to affect everyone. Everyone was involved from the very beginning. Not because everyone was at the party, but because the story is, we were a Jewish community plagued in internal strife. Everyone was the host of the party. Everybody had enemies that they didn't want to be around them, and friends that they used as tools to humiliate those enemies. The reason why the host is unnamed is so that we don't even have an identity for this other who we can place the blame upon for the destruction of Jerusalem. The blame belongs to everyone. To me, that's the brilliance of the movie. You know, these are cute little animations, but there's always in each one of these animations an artistic, creative reinterpretation of the story that's designed to clarify, I think, its real purpose. And to me, that's the fact that everybody was there at the party. There was no host. There was no host in this party. It just everybody said, "You are not wanted here." And the root of the destruction of Jerusalem is that attitude. So, like I said last week, I don't think in our own time, reflecting on our own time and our own issues and how many people blame what happened on October 7th to disunity within the Jewish community prior to October 7th, being distracted by our own affairs, making enemies out of others, inviting some people to our party and not inviting other people to our party. I think it's such a relevant and beautiful story. The only sad part of the story is in the end, Jerusalem is destroyed. Jerusalem is destroyed and only survives because of the creativity of a small group that's able to say, we need to rebuild elsewhere. So that is a sad sort of conclusion to the story, that sometimes things can't be saved. And it is better just to start all over again with a new group of people. I hope that is not, I hope that that's not foretelling to some of our own issues, but I know all of us can relate in life that some situations just not being able to be fixed, and that sometimes it's better for everybody to start all over again. Yeah.
It's very interesting because a lot of the spokespeople, the intellectuals in Israel, who are speaking about after, quotes, the war, and they're not saying when that is going to be,
yes,
are looking to restart the country in a different
absolutely
way.
Yes, I just read an article like that.
Yeah.
Right, I think there's a realization in Israel now that something serious went wrong. We cannot do this again, and it's not just Hamas. We can't let Hamas breach the borders again. We did something to ourselves. Our government failed us. The state failed us. We have to rebuild with a new, maybe a new set of expectations and structure. And sometimes it takes calamity before that can happen. So we have our calamity, they had their calamity, and Yavne becomes the center of Jewish learning. Yavne becomes the place where the Talmud really gets created. All of the Jewish academies sprout originally from the school of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakai in Yavne, and he becomes the hero, right? Not because he stayed with the people, but because he fled.
I wanted to say, following up on what Marlene said, the story is now different because our diaspora is so affected. And kind of going back to what I said about money, I mean, one of our natural reactions is for the Jewish philanthropists to bank money from the institutions. I think things have changed so rapidly. I think most of us are just in shock. And kind of sympathy with these stories because we actually have no idea where we're heading or what are the best path.
Yeah, very, very insightful. There's a lot of philanthropy coming, to help Israel at this moment, and that's great, but it's not going to fix any of the problems, right? Those are short-term solutions. The bigger issues need more than money. They need will to solve them, and
they need different leadership.
Different leadership maybe, and just
understanding.
And I think at its root, a different social contract between people. That's the story. That's what the story is about. If you see your fellow as the biggest enemy, another enemy that really sees you as its enemy is going to come and take advantage of your vulnerability.
So look at the leadership in Israel. This was inevitable.
Well, I'm not here to comment on politics. I'm here to teach Torah. But if you want to draw conclusions from what we've learned to today, all the power to you. See you all next week, 9:45 on Monday.